those were two portrayals of Spider-Man that I really enjoyed. I pity that the Andrew Garfield series didn't have more entries. For me, it was more because of the decisions in the second film to cram too much into it that led to it not being so good in the box office, but that's just my opinion. But for me, it was wonderful the way they brought back the other Spider-Mans and had them relate to each other with different circumstances. They did that really well. I know that sometimes some of the jokes might seem a bit too much, but for Spider-Man fans, there will be some of those things that they've always been discussing, like, oh, you actually produce the web internally, or if you have to have something, a machine that makes it so that you can run out of it during a fight. There were so, but I think they really got the heart of it in that dynamic of, if you're going to have the three Spider-Mans appear to each other, if you're going to have the three Spider-Mans appear to each other, they did it right in terms of the heart that you're supposed to have in that moment. So that was really well done, and of course the movie, just between the inclusion of the different Spider-Man and the way they portrayed the enemies, that is enough to make it a wonderful movie for me. I would like them to get into some of the things that I had a problem with. And I know that this will not have a problem for everyone, but I'm just speaking for myself. For in the MCU, they presented Spider-Man in a specific way, which was, we're going to bring him in at a certain age, in a certain situation. So we have a younger Aunt May. We don't have Uncle Ben anymore. So you don't have that opportunity to do the Uncle Ben story. But they did that because, well, okay, people are already familiar with it. So that's fine. Let's assume that as a given. And a bit different from the comics, where you have Peter always in a difficult financial situation. Here you have him already having a lot of support from Stark Technologies because of that Iron Man Spider-Man relationship as a coach or parental figure. So as a fan, I had already accepted that, and I didn't like the fact of them doing the Green Goblin killing Aunt May, because for me it felt cheap. Not the acting of or the way the moment is performed. That's not what I mean. But it felt cheap because it just came out of nowhere, just to have the moment. And for me, I didn't think that was necessary in the situation of Spider-Man. You've already had him come to gripes with taking things more seriously in the previous movies, where he already has to think, okay, I have the opportunity to do some good here. So I felt that came out of nowhere, and I didn't like that decision. I would much rather have Aunt May continue as a motherly figure to him going forward. I think Willem Dafoe's character could have been used much better, and I'll explain why. For me, there are certain elements that are important in the Spider-Man universe. You need to have a Kingpin. You need to have Oscorp, Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn. These are integral characters in that mythology. So, my hope when I saw that they were going to have the multiverse was that certain characters would come into the movie and remain there. I know I'm talking about my expectations, so it will differ from other people. But this is a world with no Oscorp, with no Norman Osborn. Can they present it in the future? Sure, they can. But at this moment, there's no Norman Osborn, there's no Oscorp, there's no Dr. Octavius. So for me, this was an opportunity to somehow bring them into our universe and establish them. Okay, they're going to stay. You know, I don't have a problem with them that not being the story. So they go back to their universe. I liked how Spider-Man helped them. I think that was very in character. But I do have a problem with them not having an Oscorp and a Norman Osborn in this world. There are many decisions that I felt forced, specifically that May death, just to bring into that an inner growth moment. I don't think it had to be that way. It could be a different way. You could use MJ as the Goblin trying to attack her, some decision, but without having to kill anyone there. I also didn't like it was very gimmicky, the use of Doctor Strange, which was, we need Doctor Strange just to bring the enemies here, but we're going to close him in a portal for the whole movie and bring him back just for the ending, just so he can close things off. It's so gimmicky, Marvel. Please, can you get over that? Another thing also is the fact that if you consider that situation of how they do that, the portal in the end of the movie, they can't close the portal. Ned can't close the portal because it has to be closed after opened. And for Doctor Strange, with the mirror reality, I forgot the exact name. The portal conveniently closes after Spider-Man leaves it, locking Doctor Strange in it. And Spider-Man, who has no idea of how that thing that Doctor Strange uses on his fingers, that metal thing on his fingers, conveniently thinks, I'll take this because it's going to be of use. I'm sorry, that's just bad writing. And another thing that I have a problem with is the decision to just say, okay, everyone's going to forget who Peter Parker is. The spell that I understood in the beginning of the movie was people were going to forget. So in the beginning of the movie, the spell that Doctor Strange is about to perform is people will forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It does not mean people will forget who Peter Parker is, or people will forget that Spider-Man is. So if you were a friend with Peter Parker, those relationships continue. If you were a friend with Spider-Man, those things will continue. So the Avengers still remember who Spider-Man is Spider-Man. It's just the fact of knowing the secret identity. That's the issue. But at the end of the movie, it's different. No, okay. Doctor Strange no longer will remember who Peter Parker is. So what? The Avengers don't remember who Spider-Man is anymore. And the decision that his good friends and his girlfriend from high school, they don't remember who he is anymore. I hated that decision. I know this will be differ from people to people, person to person, but I really hated that decision. It's what do you benefit from it? If this is just because I know that Spider-Man is broke. I know Spider-Man is broke in that part of his life as a student and things like that. But seriously, if you need to cut off the link of Stark Technologies, you could do something else. I did not like that in the least. And I thought it was inconsistent and just doesn't make sense in terms of, okay, so the Avengers won't know about him anymore. I don't like that. Another thing that bothers me has to do with the ending of the previous movie and how it's treated in this movie. In the ending of the previous movie, you have Mysterio frame Spider-Man for his death. Sincerely, if Mysterio's in that position of power, first, I don't think he's planning his own death, unless he wasn't dead and that was all a trick. So that's why I didn't have a problem going into the movie, because I would say, well, let's see what happens there. They might bring Mysterio back. Because I don't think it's consistent for the character that he would say, oh no, I really expect to die, so I already have this planned out to put it on Spider-Man. Really, in that position, with all the power he had control of the Stark tech, he was going to assume and plan for his death? I don't think that is consistent, reasonable. So the fact that the story treats that as being successful is already a problem for me going into the movie. I think that that doesn't make sense. Usually, unless the character knows, let's say the villain knows that he has a disease and he's going to die, or he needs to do this big sacrifice because of saving someone else, the villain doesn't make the plan that I'm going to sacrifice myself. That isn't consistent for the character there. So I felt that was a bad place to start anyway. But so I honestly, I left the theaters. I didn't like how I felt leaving the theaters. These things bothered me quite a bit. They continue to bother me. The movie has wonderful moments, from the having the other Spider-Man and having the enemies there. That was wonderfully done. But I hate where the movie went in terms of the consequences for that universe. It felt so depressive for a Spider-Man story. And Spider-Man is one of those most upbeat, one of the most positive characters. He's almost like the Bugs Bunny of Marvel. He's cheerful. He'll have his dark times, but as you saw in other Spider-Man iterations, he gets over that. And that isn't the general tone of this movie. So I felt I didn't like those decisions. And another problem I think Marvel has is that in the previous phases within the Infinity Saga, we always knew where things were kind of connecting. So you could have, for example, a teaser or post-credit scene, and while you didn't know everything, it wasn't confusing. For here, they literally had to have a whole trailer, a narrated trailer, as a post-credit scene for Doctor Strange, because of the way they're trying to tie things up. So that does not leave me very enthusiastic, and I'm a big fan of Doctor Strange. I'm looking forward to the second movie, but that made me kind of wary of how successful they will be in terms of tying things up in a nice way, given how well they've done things in the past. So let's see. I hope to be wrong on that. And Another thing, they have the Venom post-credit scene, mid-credit scene, where I really hope that then what they're going to do is not to have a new Venom in that multiverse. In other words, I hope they didn't have Venom bleeping. I hope they didn't have Venom just appearing to leave a piece of the symbiote in and then be transferred out, and just have a new Venom cast. That would be so cheap, and especially when you have such a great actor for it already, and you've done such a great work in the other in Sony has done a good work in creating the Lethal Protector and making Venom arrive at the point where he's ready to take on other stories. That would be horrible if Marvel were to not use him as Venom. So, anyway, those are my thoughts. I would love to hear what you think about these things, because we can disagree, we can have different opinions, and but I would actually like to know what you think about it. So feel free to put that in the comment section, and see you next time.